Hey everybody, this is a video to try to clarify what role-playing games are. And this is a genre I really enjoy playing. And I really hate it when people have ridiculous misconceptions about the genre, particularly when they make just outright stupid claims. Or they say certain games are role-playing games when they're really not. They just have RPG elements. And this all stems from just a lot of misinformation that you'll see out there that just concerns, say, rule sets, whereas they don't really focus on what's plainly in front of you. When you're playing a role-playing game, you always have this idea in the back of your head, but you never really notice it until it's mentioned. And the sad part is that it's mentioned every single time someone even utters the phrase role-playing game. It's the role-playing. That's what makes role-playing games what they are. It's not about stat systems or combat or inventories or quests or journals or anything like that. It's all about role-playing. And so the ridiculous claims I see, things like, only games like Final Fantasy are role-playing games, or any game where you're playing as a character is a role-playing game. That would include stuff like Max Payne and Mario and Legend of Zelda, stuff like that, by the way. It drives me nuts when people make ridiculous claims like that because it's just stupid. They don't notice what's plainly in front of them. And that is, if you're not doing any role-playing, you are not playing a role-playing game. What does that mean? Well, the best description I ever found for it was in a tabletop system. And that tabletop system was C.J. Corilla's Witchcraft. And it was actually pretty clear what they were trying to go for with this description. It puts it in plain English for you. And obviously it was tailored to the game itself, but it still puts it in perspective for you. And this was what tabletop systems did, and still continue to do. With video games, things are a bit different because there are a lot more limitations. But the essence of a role-playing game is the actual role-playing. What does that mean? The actual quote is, "It is a more mature version of the games of Let's Pretend." Let's Pretend. You remember playing that, where you would pretend you were, say, a mighty knight in shining armor going to fight the dragon, and then you'd go up to your friend and say, "You're the dragon," and you'd act like you're whacking them in the face or something like that. And that sort of thing. The rules are meant to avoid the old disputes about exactly what happened. Direct quote from the book. And again, I'm going to quote from this book. "In sum, by playing a role-playing game, the Chronicler," which is their term for a GM or DM or something like that, or in the case of a video game, the developer, and the cast members, players, weave a story together. The adventures, triumphs, and tragedies of the characters will be part of a larger tapestry. In effect, the gaming group is creating and experiencing a novel or play, experiencing the double thrill of the creative act and the enjoyment of reading a book or watching a movie. Direct quotes from the book. And I'll obviously have page references if you care for that. The simple fact of the matter is, if you're not doing any role-playing, if you are not weaving a story with the developers, basically, you're not playing a role-playing game. Now, that's a lot harder to do with a video game than it is with a tabletop system. Because with tabletop systems, it's completely freeform. You can do whatever you want with those. As long as they follow the rules, you're playing that game. But in a video game, it's much more codified. You don't really have all that much creative input. But, and this is the big thing, that essence of role-playing must be there. That essence being, if you are not playing the character, making choices as that character, and those choices affecting the story, and the world around you, that experience that I've just described, that's what a role-playing game is. If it doesn't have that, then it's not a role-playing game. It doesn't matter what your rules are. You could have stat systems up the wazoo. If you don't have your choices as that character affecting the world and story around you, then it's not a role-playing game. That's why games like Diablo and Final Fantasy aren't role-playing games. Doesn't mean they're bad games. It just means they're not role-playing games. They have role-playing elements, like the stat systems, like combat, like inventories, quests, that sort of thing. And it boggles my mind how few people understand such a simple concept. It's just ridiculous. I see so many people claiming that the rules make the game. No. The rules make the game play. The essence makes the genre. Now, typically, the genre is, of course, going to have a lot of similarities. You're probably going to have stat systems in every one of these role-playing games, particularly with video games. You're probably going to have much more limited choices than you would with an actual tabletop, because you can't help that. It's a video game. It's actually programmed. There's not a lot you can do with the inputs, which is why true role-playing games really don't exist in video game form. But you get close enough with certain types of games. Games like The Witcher, Planescape Torment, Baldur's Gate, Ultima, particularly up from 4 up through 7. Your choices have consequences. These consequences affect things around you, and you notice them. And it's a pretty big deal. That's what role-playing games are in video game form. Now, what about the rest of those games that are thrown into the genre but don't have the actual role-playing? Why are they called role-playing games? Well, mechanically, they don't really fit anywhere else. And people are too lazy to actually come up with genre names for them. Hence why it takes such a long time to actually figure out what these games are. Games like what we call JRPGs. They're really not role-playing games. You're not doing any role-playing in them. You're not playing as those characters, making choices as those characters. You're just watching the story unfold. Doesn't make it a bad game, but that's just what that genre is. It's more like an adventure game than anything else. We just don't have a better name for the genre right now. And until somebody develops a better name for the genre, we're just going to have to refer to them as such, because that's what people know them as. They don't call them role-playing games. They just call them JRPGs. And in fact, the term itself, JRPG, the shortened form of it, just the 4 letters, has seemed to become the actual name of the genre. It's a really weird circumstance. With games like Diablo, we don't call them ARPGs. Some people still do. I don't know why they do, but some people still do. They're Diablo clones. Because they play like Diablo. And that pretty much spawned its own subgenre of games. We call them Diablo clones. It's not that big of a deal. We call games like roguelikes. We don't call them role-playing games, we call them roguelikes. We call old-school games like Eye of the Beholder dungeon crawlers. We don't call them role-playing games. Does this make sense? I hope it does, because I'm trying to be as clear and concise as possible. Just because something isn't part of a genre doesn't make it bad. I want to be very clear with that. It just means that it's not part of that genre. It's just that role-playing games are so incredibly unique as a genre that it really bothers me when people try to lump games in there that don't belong there, or try to exclude games that do belong there. It's just infuriating when that sort of thing happens, because these people don't understand what makes role-playing games role-playing games. They just throw around ideas of mechanics. Mechanics can be transplanted in anything. There are tons of games out there that do that sort of thing. But we don't consider those role-playing games. We don't consider Borderlands a role-playing game. We consider it an FPS. It has role-playing elements. It has stat systems. It has inventory. It has quests and loot and that sort of thing. But it doesn't have that essence. It doesn't have role-playing. It doesn't have you making choices as your character, and by those choices, the world around you and the story and your own character's personality and everything changing. That's what makes role-playing games so compelling. that choice and consequence. That is why role-playing games are so unique and so interesting. It's not the mechanics. Mechanics only help to facilitate that. I hope that clarifies things for you. Thanks for watching.